Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
New Year.
Yes, good to see you.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Well. How you, Miss Olivia? You good? Everybody?
Yes.
Mark?
I'm doing
Ashley?
good.
Good. I moved over the holiday, and so
Oh,
my
Oh,
life
Mm-hmm.
is a little chaotic, but we're making it work. So if you see people in the background and hear dogs, I apologize, but I have limited space where I can I can work at this moment.
you have to build out that office.
Yes, yes, that's the plan.
Good morning.
Oh, hold on
oh,
one.
Eric.
Good morning, Eric.
Happy New Year.
Oh, look at his background. That looks nice.
Happy New Year.
The meeting just started.
How you been feeling, Dr. Crabtree?
Let me get
I'm
back.
I'm feeling much better. I haven't had a chance to tell everyone what happened was a bleed. I had a 4-day bleed,
Oh my gosh.
and so it resolved, and I went to work, and just as I was heading out the door, it hit me again, and my PCP sent me straight to the ER and ended up at Baptist for 2 days, which was quite an experience. And then but they took me off all my NSAIDs, so thus the back problem has resurfaced. So it is what it is. I'm waiting for surgery, and the medical system is not smoothly running these days.
Yeah.
It's like we're not. I think I'm ninth in line, 90th in line on the surgery list. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so it's a couple months out.
Is
I'm
that
glad
the
people don't.
VA?
This will be at the either Corinne or at Baptist Hospital.
Okay.
So we're figuring out where it's going to be the most expeditious place to get the care, but it is what it is. When you get to a certain age, you hobble around until they. I'm thankful that none of my patients would suffer with pain in my practice the way that people are forced to do in the medical field. We can fix it pretty quick.
All right. Well, I think we have a quorum now.
Yes, if you're ready, we can call the meeting to order and I can do the roll call. And I will remind the committee that with our changes following the September board meeting, this is being live streamed to YouTube.
Okay, great. Yeah, I call the meeting to order. Let's do roll.
All right. Ashley Lockhart,
Here.
Michael Lunsgard. See Michael. Kevin Lane,
Here.
Dr. Mark Crabtree,
Here,
Senator Srinivasan,
Here.
and we also have Eric Jones with us.
Here.
All right, you have a full committee.
All right, great. Would you mind pulling up the agenda so that we
Sure.
could discuss it?
All right, can you see the agenda?
Not yet.
Oh, I didn't hit share. That's fine. There we go.
Okay, great. So first we have to approve the April draft minutes. Then we're going to review and approve or just review and vote to send the or not send the committee report to the chair and the full committee, and then we can discuss other business and adjournment. So let's quickly review the April minutes. Does anybody have any changes to those minutes?
move to adopt
Done.
as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Great, they are approved, and we will send those to the full committee for next week's meeting. All right. And then the other reason we are here today is to review the report on that was requested by the chair and then voted on by the full committee in our previous meeting. And staff spent a lot of time over the last month and a half developing it. And Olivia, if you want to bring that up as well. I know we have comments and ideas to add to it. That's why we're here is to review it. But I did want to note that it was developed according to the chair's request, and it follows the format and includes the items that were requested and then voted on by the board. So
Do you
Olivia,
want- Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I
you
can
wanna
walk
get-
through it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so as Ashley said, the draft report of for the committee follows the chairman's direction, and that was reviewing the proposal on the table, analyzing any legal, operational, academic, workforce implications, identifying alternative pathways, comparing Virginia's other 4 higher education centers with NCI, any stakeholder engagement and available documentation, and then also providing findings and recommendation for the board to consider at next week's meeting on January 15th. And generally, I'll go to the decision options. Looking at the proposal, one of the first things was verifying some of the claims in the proposal, which was pertaining to enrollment, facility capacity, as well as legislative and budgetary actions that would need to take place, among some other areas of the presentation that required documentation from various data sources. And the 2 primary sources used in this report were SHEV, that's the State Council of Higher Education in Virginia, and also JLARC, which is the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission that issued a report about Virginia's community colleges in October of 2025. And so, go ahead.
Olivia, just really quick. So SHEV is the official source and the source of truth for all higher education data and statistics in Virginia.
Yes, and a lot of I'd say almost all the data from the JLARC report is also SHEV. So yeah, that's right. So looking at the proposal, and starting with the enrollment data at Patrick and Henry that's available at SHEV, it appears based on the data reported to SHEV that the overall enrollment of Patrick and Henry is either declining over the past 10 years or has been stagnant. A big part of the proposal was the Fast Forward program, which is a funding mechanism. Fast Forward, I would call the forward-facing version of the program. It's by code the New Economy Workforce Credential Grant Program. This was passed by the General Assembly in 2016. NCI is also eligible for this funding. It's a first come, first serve funding source for the Virginia Community College System, NCI, and Southern Virginia Higher Education Center, excuse me. And this is basically a pay for performance. So students can get 1/3 of the tuition covered on the front end, and then after satisfactory completion of the program, they can get the other third. So it's up to 2/3 of the funding. And so when we look at the students at Patrick and Henry who are getting this grant funding, it is increasing. But given the overall enrollment, it doesn't seem like new students coming into Patrick and Henry, it's new students are getting the funding source to complete the training programs.
Olivia, I think it might be helpful context to add here. The community college system as a whole, because I believe that the trend is Commonwealth-wide and nationwide. I just want to be clear that it's how Patrick and Henry looks comparatively.
In terms of their enrollment?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. So for Patrick and Henry, in comparison to the It might be later in the report. But they are 17th out of 23 community colleges for enrollment. JLARC goes in depth about how about half of VCCS's community colleges have low enrollment under 2,200 students a year, and Patrick and Henry is one of those. Patrick and Henry does have a higher number of people who attend in person, but there are historically low numbers, and JLARC also goes into generally facility utilization is underutilized at these smaller community colleges. And so I don't have every source of data available to me from Patrick and Henry specifically, but based on the research, it's hard to see how they are outgrowing their space. And so anything else on that? Did I answer the question, Ashley?
Mhm.
Okay.
I had
Olivia,
another point.
excuse me, I'm trying to get my dog to stop barking. To that point, statewide, do they consider geographic areas versus?
Relative to population, you mean?
Yes,
Mhm.
The other
rural
thing in
versus
terms,
rural versus urban and us
Yes,
versus,
the
yeah.
JLARC report specifically talks about rural community colleges and their low enrollment rates, and also the emphasis on both dual enrollment and career and technology, the CTE courses. And it's important to note that the majority of those are not happening on campus. And that is about at least 26% of the overall population of the college.
Thank you.
another demographic factor that's in there that, we've of course fall under the mega environment of this decline, and it happens across the country, but also during this time frame, we had a tremendous increase of students that were kind of pumped into the system due to all the plant closures and all the things that went in. So there's going to be in addition to that, the natural decline of the workforce efforts that were done when we had the plant closures and the extremely high unemployment rates in the early 2000s. So there's some other things in there, but in terms of the national trend, it's a perfect example of what's happening in higher education in terms of the utilization of education and higher of the community college systems and the colleges too. So
Yes, the enrollment cliff.
yes.
In addition to particularly trends with community colleges, when the economy is performing well, people are less likely to enroll, and if the economy has a downward trend, then that reverses itself.
Great. Any other questions here? Okay, we'll keep moving. Also, just for reference, for the committee, here is a chart of the upcoming courses at Patrick and Henry that qualify for the Fast Forward funding. Nurse aid clinicals, CDL, certified clinical medical assistant, heavy equipment operators are the primary offerings, of which there is no duplication with NCI. Alrighty, facility capacity. I haven't received any facility utilization reports from Patrick and Henry. JLARC does cite Chev's space utilization report from fall 2024. I tried to look that up and it doesn't seem to be publicly available at this time, so I wasn't able to see in depth, but I did include the excerpt quote from JLARC discussing how rural community colleges tend to underutilize their spaces. Next, here's another chart of since 2015, the new buildings and facilities that Patrick and Henry has added to their campus. That's around, I think, 137 acres. Most people in Martinsville are familiar with Met 1 and 2. We know that they're very large facilities. The most recent one opened in 2023. Next, the report addresses the JLARC quote that says that community colleges should work with higher education centers when they exist in the same geographic area. And you'll see from later in the report, the other 4 higher education centers and their community colleges do work actively together in partnership and coordination and shared facility spaces. The JLARC report doesn't make any assumptions about whether or not working with a higher education center should lead to any type of absorption or dissolution of higher education centers. The sentence puts the onus on the community colleges to work with those centers where they exist in their communities. And I should also note that Joe Sumner, our executive director, has had both an internal policy to not duplicate services and to work together with Patrick and Henry as much as possible, but it's also codified in the Code of Virginia under the powers of the board specifically. And that is also mirrored in the other 4 higher education centers code language. All right, the next part addresses the supporting organizations in the resolution, which is Patrick and Henry Community College, the Martinsville Henry County Economic Development Corporation, the Harvest Foundation, Martinsville Henry County Academic Foundation, the Henry County Board of Supervisors, and state elected officials, Senator Bill Stanley, who I just realized I spelled his name wrong. I'll correct that. And Delegate Eric Phillips. To date, while we have received some documentation of text messages agreeing with the development of the resolution, we have, outside of the Henry County Board of Supervisors, not received any formal letter of support for this resolution directly to NCI staff leadership, or to my knowledge, Chairman Jones has not received anything outside of the proposal. Henry County Board of Supervisors, yes.
Okay, on that, I sent this morning those text messages and stuff, and this, in terms of a resolution, all the whereases up above are just kind of laying out the concept, and when you go through to try to get discussion, you look at the actual resolves, and of course, when we go down this list, Patrick Henry Community College, the question was asked, what would they do? And this question had been asked several times before of the community college, before President Greg Hodges. And so they'd, I guess, what would they do if that building was made available? Because that was part of the discussion that was going around, that it would be defunded. And that was the thing that I just sent out, which was part of the what his vision, what it could be, and could become in Uptown Martinsville, and how that could be. And when you're in the local community, the impact that could have of having a greater educational presence of the community college in Uptown Martinsville is tremendous. It would help the west end of Martinsville tremendously. It would help the local businesses uptown, and it would help the uptown area to revitalize and continue to do that. So when you get these information in terms of the background information, just the support is important. So I just sent 3 letters, and this kind of attacks my integrity a little bit when you say that they're not validated. But the ones that are there is the Economic Development Corporation. They met, and I received direct confirmation from their executive director that they supported this. The Harvest Foundation, their board met, and they contacted me and told me that they thought this was a good idea. This is all background information.
Mark,
Academic
would
Foundation.
would they be willing to write a formal letter, submit a formal letter so that
when we get to
Okay.
that point, I think that would be good. Now, the county did. They actually voted on it, and I included that today. So I don't know where that got lost in the shuffle, but I sent everyone a copy of the actual support letter that says, "To whom it may concern," back in September, from the Henry County Board of Supervisors unanimously supporting the concept of
so
this.
that is in here. Yes, that is
Yes,
in
I
here,
just
but
I just
yeah,
sent it, I
all
just
the
sent you that one. And then let's just be honest. This whole thing with the other foundation has been a big nothing burger. You know, it's just been floundering, the lawyers, and we actually
Hey,
bless.
Mark, we should not be discussing that
Okay, well, anyway, anyway,
anything related to litigation in this
right.
meeting.
Okay, so no litigation, but basically, the idea of trying to open that door to get that some sort of resolution to anything that's going on with that situation, if this was an idea that they would be open to, I thought that was important. So I reached out and talked to the individual that was there. This is a small community. So I reached out to that person and actually I said, hey, would you give you money over the net? Well, of course not. They're going to do anything like that. But they said that they were open to this concept, which I think is a step, an inch in the right direction. It's an inch. It's no negotiation. There's nothing committed by anyone. And to think that there is errant. So basically, I included where she responded back to me, and today I sent everyone a copy of that today, because I had to go back and figure out how to find it. And then, of course, the state elected officials, they reviewed it and they gave me their verbal opinion, and we certainly can talk to them as time goes on. But as a moving target thing, I think that whole section should be stricken. And when we get to the point to discuss that, of those sections there are a part of the background information. There is no, and you look at the resolve section, it does not impact the resolution other than the fact that those folks are building the framework to get resolution to move us forward in a positive way for the citizens of Martins Henry County and the children in this community who are suffering under terrible. If you look at the demographics on the Patrick Henry report, it'll open your eyes as to what we're challenged with in terms of educational levels, in terms of job opportunities. And that's what we've got to address. That's what NCI was intended to address. And that's what the big, broader business community sees is not getting done. So this whole thing of saying to key partners, you don't have it at the appropriate time, people will chime in. And that's
Okay.
really not the appropriate time for that.
Thanks, Mark. Eric?
Yeah.
Dr. Crabtree, one thing about the key regional partner support, one thing I would like for them to, if possible, when they gave their support in some, like the Henry County Board of Supervisors, I would like to understand what did they think our level of support was for the resolution? Because as I understand it, a lot of people felt that people were approaching this like, oh, of course, a board member has brought this to me. Obviously, the board has discussed this through committee and at the board level. So now they're bringing this to us as a resolution that's been approved by the board. Would you say that I think to date, it's shown that a lot of people did not understand that we had not fully discussed this as a board yet. So I think this section may also need to be tabled with some of that kind of that nuance behind it, because
we need verification if we move forward. I mean, if we're not going to move forward, there's no need to go forward. But
yeah,
the process, let me describe the process there. That when I ran into the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, and he and I were talking, I was told him I had this concept that's not approved by the board, but I'm going to try to get it through the board to get them to do it. That was the approach that was given to him and the county administrator both, because they were in two different, you ultimately have to talk to both. So they took that to their board and discussed the concept and said and basically they approved that. So that was the communication to them, was this was that. Now, there's also lots of chatter going on with people that's created things that says that they're not there. Now, what they perceived and what they thought and all that stuff is okay, but it's a background statement that says this is a concept that this could be done. And if it's something that the Commonwealth needs to go forward, then we can run out there and gather up all the hardcore things that go along with that. But the support of those individuals that were there as a part of the background statement, it just is to support the idea of moving the process forward. And, ultimately, when we have a real plan and you run it out there and say, this is what we really want to do, then you could have formal public hearings and do all that good stuff of where you get it up to that point. But if there's no support in the community at all for this, then it wouldn't be where we are today. It would be dead. It'd be dead, nothing burger, just like the other. So, but when you have a reflection of the people that are involved with economic development and workforce needs to try to improve the opportunities, are saying, hey, we need to go in a different direction. Yeah, the education environment has changed completely. That's where it is. And I'm sorry if they got the misinterpretation of that, but at this point in time, they voted on it at that time as a concept, and they thought that it was a good one. So, and I think that in terms of the foundation, I think that was that I think to have them actually think that there's a movement in the right direction or a step in a different direction, I think that was important. I think that, we've had, the legal thing has been fun, so, as you can imagine. But when commitments were made and withdrawn, you got to, where is it? It's the same place it's been 2 years ago. We've made no progress. So, that's kind of that. But that whole section there, as a part of the overall report, I mean, I just don't think it brings anything of real value to the overall report in terms of the whole board. The whole board's seen it, they've heard it, but I think that to act like that it's not verifying what's said there was inaccurate, I think is not right.
Dr. Crabtree, I don't think I want to characterize as what you're saying is not accurate. I just think that this section does, though, characterize, I think there was a understanding when it was presented. Like you said, it was proposal. But since then, there has been a removing of it from the Henry County, as stated here on November 25th, 2025, Supervisor Garrett Dillard suggested the possibility of removing the agenda item. So there obviously in the vote is confusion on that vote on that particular group, right?
Well,
So
let me
just to point
well,
that.
let me point that out, what that is. Number one, the process as it was originally going to unfold, you could have had some legislation. So they were prepared to take it forward. Where we are today, there is no legislation. They're not prepared to take it forward. There's no one needing to have it on their legislative agenda. So there's no need to involve their lobbyists and their people in it. So it's totally appropriate for any of those groups to do it because we have no legislation there, which it has to be, it's a legislative issue. So absolutely, Garrett is absolutely right that you don't need to have that there because there's nothing there for them to support at this time. And so that's the process, the way it was a timing issue that was pushing it to kind of get it out quicker. And then, of course, the nuclear bomb that we experienced kind of totally disrupted the timeline in terms of doing anything that was constructive in this legislative session, for sure. I mean, we at this point in time, there's no need to even think about trying to introduce anything to move forward until and in fact, the resolution as was ultimately presented totally reflects that. I mean, it just, and I think it's appropriate that the board kind of deferred it to figure out what we're going to do. But I think the thing is, it's one idea out of many.
So one of what I'm hearing is that factually, this is correct. So for our purposes, I think we should leave this section as is and move on to, because we've used up half of our time already.
You want me to go to the next section?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. The next part of this section of the report discusses the JLARC report that we've talked about a few times already, specifically the citation that community colleges with a regional education center in their service region should coordinate with the center to ensure their programs are not duplicative and regional program needs are being met. They also discuss, we've discussed a lot of this already with Patrick and Henry. They do have the highest percentage of face-to-face courses taught out of any of the 23 community colleges, but they do rank 17th out of 23 for the full-time enrollment. Additionally, we've noted that 26% of the full-time enrollees are dual enrollment. Those are high school students, and they do not always typically attend on campus. Next section is—
Wait just a second before we go from there. On the claim number 4 sentence there, number one, that was a part of it. That statement was just to be included just because they were discussing it. There's nothing actually in the actual resolves that relates to that. So I'd like to change the word supports to mention the restructuring. There was no supporting of it. There was nothing in the document that supported that.
Where's
just
the word
it.
support?
That's claim 4. It says JLARC Commission supports. I just think that they just mentioned it in their report. It was not a supported thing.
Where are you saying? Right here?
On
Whereas?
page 10,
No, the blue writing at the top.
page
claim, yeah.
10. Yeah,
Mm,
right there.
okay.
Keep
Yeah,
going.
so
Over there it
that can
says
be amended.
supports. I would say mentions it because really they did not, there was no support. And that whole statement was in the whereas part, which is not a part of the actual resolution. It was just a statement of background that they mentioned it. And probably as a parliamentary procedure, probably could be just kicked out completely. But I think it's got good, valuable information there, and the way it's presented is good. But I do not think that it should be reflected that they supported that because they didn't. They
Okay,
just mentioned
great.
it. They just mentioned that.
We'll change that language.
Yes, that's
Thanks for
easy.
that.
All right, next, this is related to bachelor's degree pathways. The proposal discusses how Patrick and Henry Community College can potentially attract university partners and expand degree pathways. There wasn't, in either the proposal that Patrick and Henry developed in August, or in the resolution itself, there wasn't any evaluation of a comparative partnership analysis. There wasn't evidence offered of NCI's current partnerships, and their ability or inability to grow, or that NCI's current statutory model is a barrier to that. And it's important to note that the Virginia Community College system, has 23 community colleges. Patrick and Henry is one of them. And they, through the benefit of being a part of VCCS, have a statewide guaranteed admissions agreement. So this is not unique to Patrick and Henry. This is all community colleges, including the community colleges that operate with other higher education centers in their footprint. And as we talk about NCI's partnership model and how other higher education centers operate, it's important to note that NCI would gladly work with Patrick and Henry to develop partnerships with universities to bring them to NCI. And that's typically how the other higher education centers, they do leverage those partnerships and relationships to bring more degree opportunities to their communities. And notably, in late September, we had a meeting with Longwood University about our current program operations and the growth we're seeing within the teaching education program that we have at NCI, and they renewed their MOU with NCI in September, on September 29th. There's also information on SHEB's website about transfer enrollment from Patrick and Henry to both public and private colleges. I'll scroll to this chart. Any colleges that have under 10 enrollments, we don't get the graduation data for that, but of the ones that were exceeding 10 students, we do have that information. And looking at the transfer enrollment from Patrick and Henry, the common schools are Longwood, which I don't have the data to compare, but I would presume that the Longwood transfers are going to NCI. There's also Old Dominion and Radford, and then within the private institutions, the predominant university is Liberty. We know anecdotally that those tend to be online enrollees. And so of that, there were, in the most recent cohort that Chev has been tracking, there were 83 students out of all of Patrick and Henry's enrollments that transferred to a public institution, and there were 51 that went to a private. And public institutions have about a 64% graduation rate, and private institutions have about a 48%. And Ashley, you are probably more familiar with data like this. I'm not sure what the average graduation rate is, and if this is on par with historically, or if this is lower than average for university graduation rates.
I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say that the 64% is more on par. And and that's related to 6-year graduation rates.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to, I don't know for
Okay.
this year.
All right. Moving forward to section 2, and let me know if I need to start skipping to preserve time. Legal implications, a lot of this was discussed during the board meeting in November, particularly the inclusion of the Martinsville-Henry County Academic Foundation, given Chairman Jones's authorization by the board in June of 2025 to be the sole person to negotiate and reach out to representatives from Martinsville. Henry County Academic Foundation. We discussed that at length during the board meeting. Let's see, other operational
Yeah,
implications.
before we leave that paragraph up there, I think most of that I'm totally in agreement with. But when it says the proposed resolution reads as though the board can effectuate outcomes that it legally cannot, it does not do that. That sentence just needs to be stricken. Number one, it just refers it to the secretary, the incoming secretary, to effectuate a plan if we were to move forward. So it doesn't read as though we can effectuate anything. It just, we refer it to them. I mean, that's the essence of the essence of the resolution is a referral up, not to the
And I think
I mean,
the essence of this section is to understand and make clear that there are specific procedures that have to
Right.
be followed, including that it needs to be a bill that is brought
So-
forward by the legislature and signed by the governor, and then it would be implemented. So,
But it doesn't read that
additionally-
way. It doesn't read that way in that, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, the proposed resolution does not read that way. It basically refers it to the staff to come up with the plan. So
Okay, well, we can.
please strike that last sentence, that it reads that way, because it doesn't. Let's go back and reread the resolution. It's a referral to the incoming secretary to do whatever. But the rest of it's fine. It talks about the enabling code on the next paragraph, which takes care of that program. And then, but it's never made any assumptions within that we could do anything without enabling legislation. It's a concept that would move forward, but to say that it reads as though we can do anything on our own and unilaterally, which is a total misnomer. It's not presented that way, and it wasn't intended to be presented that way. And it's basically a referral to the state to help us decide exactly if this is the best interest of the Commonwealth to move forward in the structure that it is, basically. And this was just one idea of many. So, when it says that I think that's that is a judgment statement that I really object to, because I don't think it reads that way. And because you throw out all the resolves up above, you just read what the resolution itself says. It does not say that we can do anything without, asking for the plan to be developed.
Olivia, we can discuss editing that piece. I do, however, I want to be cognizant of time. Do we want to skip down to the next section?
Well, do I need to make a motion to ask that be removed? I mean, I really feel strong that just needs to be removed from that, and because that is not a statement that's.
I'm happy to remove that.
Thank
I think
you
it's
very
fine.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, Mark, I think even with removing it though, I do think that the community learned, or once we had discussion about it at the last meeting, but I do want to say that it was the interpretation of the public that we did have more power than we had, and that we could do this without legislation. So I think some people were making decisions on that interpretation, which I don't think that was the intent, but that was definitely the result. That was the outcome of what happened.
Yeah. And I think some people could get that from the actual, I don't know if it was the bylaws or the legislation that said that we could dispose of property. I mean, that there is something in there that says we can do that. But I didn't project that at all. So
Thanks, sir.
thank you, Chairman.
All right, which section do you want to jump to? The alternative pathways?
Yes.
Yeah, so a few of the alternative pathways, these are based off of what exists with other higher education centers and NCI's existing model as a broker, a neutral convener. NCI could relocate some of their fast forward programs, given that we are a partnership-based model. We can work with Patrick and Henry at any time and would glad not to speak for Joe and the board, but it would be I would say a welcome opportunity to partner with them on those workforce training and use both of our resources to elevate the community and raise the area median income and education attainment. And so that is absolutely a feasible pathway to develop an MOU to partner together, and it also mirrors what the other higher education centers currently do. Additionally, another alternative pathways is updating NCI's code language, specifically the section pertaining to the board of directors, looking at the other higher education centers. While we operate in a very similar way to the other four, what is different is how their boards are composed. Each of the other four higher education centers have representatives from SCHEV, from Virginia Community College System. They also have representatives from various universities that they partner with, like Longwood, UVA, Virginia State. It sort of varies amongst the higher education centers which universities have representation on the board, depending on their geographic location and their programming. But that is certainly something that the board can explore, is how to bring those players to the table to further develop NCI's programming, workforce trainings, and also partnerships within the Virginia Community College System.
I want to pause there and see if there are any comments about that. I personally think that this is a wonderful idea to strengthen partnerships and get more people involved who are directly impacted or can have a direct impact on NCI. But I did want the committee to discuss if there are any other opinions about this. But
On
reflecting
which paragraph?
the code
pathways
language, the
3.2.
code language update. Yep, Senator.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, what kind of collaboration or cooperation we have now?
With Patrick and Henry?
Yes.
I would say, and Joe, jump in if I'm missing anything, but it's primarily operating off of the 2+2 model, where students typically go to Patrick and Henry for the first 2 years and then transfer to Longwood University's education programs at NCI for the second 2 years.
For the second 2 years.
There might be other ways that we're working with them. Joe, do you have anything else?
That's going to be the most formal and concrete evidence of a partnership. There's been an open invitation since my arrival. At one time, Dr. Hodges and I would meet once a month just to discuss different program opportunities. However, that kind of fell apart over the last year or so. Every time we made an attempt to kind of work together on a project, we would find ourselves stricken from the budget, at which point we would kind of get together and say, hey, let's navigate through this. Don't want to ask a partner to stand up a brand new program with uncertainty. So it's been a lot of touch and go, but there have been coordination, just nothing formal. So the opportunity is there, and I do believe that Dr. Hodges and I could sit together. We could come up with some great partnership opportunities together as PNH and NCI.
And we don't have a follow-up question. We don't have a MOU or any sort of letter or anything currently, right?
We have a generalized MOU that just stated when I first arrived, just almost as to be very honest with you, sir, almost just as a show of good faith between the two organizations. We have a general MOU that the two of us signed when I first arrived about 3 years ago, stating that we would seek opportunities together.
Got it. And this proposal is to make it more specific.
Yes, sir. The alternative pathway is one of the options, 3.1 lined out there. This would kind of formalize more opportunities for us to work together in a nature that that replicates what the other higher ed centers are doing.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
And in the next section, section 4, we get into more of how the other higher education centers currently work with their community college partners. NCI is part of the Southside Higher Education Coalition. This is mandated through budget language with NCI, IALR in Danville, and Southern Virginia Higher Education Center in South Boston. So annually, we submit a letter and a report, jointly, to SHEV, the Secretary of Education, and the General Assembly's House Appropriations Committee. And within that, the three organizations show how they're working together and other metrics that they are tracking and reporting for the region. In the most recent 2025 coalition report, Southern Virginia Higher Education Center reported 502 education partner enrollments, which was 483 learners that were enrolled within associate's degree programs at Southside Community College. IALR had several different metrics that they reported in collaboration with Danville Community College, and that pertained to their integrated machining technology capstone. They had 608 dual enrollment credits through the Academy for Engineering and Technology, and 1,728 dual enrollment credits were awarded to 72 students in the Piedmont Governor's School. Looking at the other two higher education centers, Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center works very closely with Virginia Highlands Community College. They, in their last annual report, unveiled that they jointly paid for a new marquee for the center in January 2025 as part of their capital improvements plan. They also work with the Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center to collaborate with Emory and Henry College on the Southwest Virginia Healthcare Excellence Academy Lab School. And they also do work with their adult education program as well. Roanoke Higher Education Center, they have a joint partnership with Virginia Western Community College. If you've ever been to Roanoke Higher Ed Center, they have a cafe, and they have a culinary arts program that operates out of that in partnership with Virginia Western. And so you can go to Roanoke Higher Education Center and get a variety of certificates and associates in the culinary arts that are then issued by Virginia Western. And it's also important to note that JLARC noted that Patrick and Henry, Virginia Highlands, Danville, and Southside, they all fall within that low enrollment category of under 2,200 full-time enrollees. And so, it's going to be hard to make it apples to apples, given it's a diverse rural area down in Southside and Southwest Virginia. But as much as possible, all 5 higher education centers are in rural areas. They all have community colleges in their backyards. Often they have universities. The other 4 are all working well together to uplift everyone and increase their enrollment and degree delivery programs.
And Olivia, at one point, I remember we were looking into the cost of creating a kitchen, test
Yes.
and teaching kitchen. Where did that fall?
Frankly, due to the other projects that have been more pressing, that has not come to fruition, but it is certainly on the priority list once we can move past some.
Is there a cost? Do we know what the cost associated with it, or have we not even
Joe.
pursued that? Joe, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I'll jump in there. We did start the initial rounds of bringing in contractors, getting quotes. So there's a couple of things that will need to be upgraded. Installation of some commercial grade vent hoods and some things, because of where the kitchen is located in a split level. It is a little costlier than it would be in a standardized open air type kitchen without being built up against the embankment. But we only made it through the preliminary rounds of quotes on things before, as Olivia mentioned, more pressing matters come up. But we are prepared, and we do foresee that as being one of our long-term programs we believe will be highly successful, will provide a lot of opportunity for individuals in our area. So we are proceeding with that once we kind of make it through the sticky situation, provided the board supports it, of course. But we do believe there is still a viable opportunity there for a very successful culinary/hospitality type program.
In ballpark, what are we talking?
The initial quotes that we're looking at just for the commercial hood have ranged anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000, depending on the types.
Okay, so overall conversion Under
we did not-
$100,000, over $100,000.
I don't have enough of the I don't have enough of the quotes collected in front of me to give you an estimate that I would feel comfortable with, but I can have that for you. I would need to revisit to see which ones we still lack, because I don't want to misspeak and give you the wrong impression.
Understood.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you.
And I will note that at one point, I don't think it's currently active, but Patrick and Henry did have a culinary arts program. So this is that example of, if Patrick and Henry wanted to restart that program, it would be an excellent opportunity to partner with NCI. But if they didn't, then this is an area that is not duplicative of Patrick and Henry.
Great. Thank you.
All right. So now we've made it to the end of the report. We're on the findings and recommendations. Basically, the staff sees it as the top priority should be revising the board's composition to bring those statewide players to the table in board meetings. Additionally, as Chairman Jones directed in the November board meeting, to attempt to at least request to increase our general appropriation from the General Assembly in the next legislative session that starts next week. And then the third one is working with the new Attorney General once they come into office to resolve the outstanding legal issue with MHCAF. And then as we move into this transition period of a new administration, a new budget cycle at the General Assembly, continuing to develop local, regional, and statewide partnerships that can continue to provide affordable and accessible workforce training programs in the community.
Any comments here?
Yeah, but before we go to a vote, I will just let you know that overall the report, I think, commend the staff for doing a good job on doing all the due diligence and things that we've done to this point. And I think that's a correlation of the more information that we get, the more that we can do to move forward. The community, as when I speak of the business community and the economic development efforts that are going on to change the direction of where our community is going, it's generally frustrated, I guess, to see that we need to see more. And I think we've seen a little glimmer of some more information getting out about what we're doing over the last couple of months. I don't know if a new individual's taken over some of the PR or whatever, but it looks much better. The communication has got to be increased. And to be honest with you, to receive a report like this the day before is extremely frustrating. For people that do this as volunteers, to digest a lot of this is difficult to do in a 24-hour turnaround. Number two, I think most of the stuff in here, I don't have any problems with some of the the direction of some of the things that's presented to move it forward. But under the way I strongly object to the way that the input from the local people is taken. So I'm going to vote against it because of that. And but for the most part, I think the direction and the things that we can talk about at the board level, I think is fine to try to, of course, increase the dialogue. We got a whole year that we can't do anything this year other than try to get more money. And we were promised $1 million. So we just hope to see that, I think. And so that's the whole thing. And I do want to commend the staff for actually putting together a pretty decent report that brought in a lot of the data and information that would need to be discovered. But the overall, the point of the resolution is if we were to lose our funding, what will we do? And if you do environmental scan real quick of what's here and what's available in the region, we don't have a whole lot of choices. And what's the advantage to the local community is that a wonderful opportunity to have a very vibrant higher ed activities of people within that building during the day, daily, increases restaurant trade, increases opportunities for businesses on Fayette Street, increases opportunities for everyone in Uptown Martinsville. And that's what the local people see, that it could be a great asset, but they don't see it as that now. So since that was not reflected in the comments that I got in trying to get things moving forward, I'm going to vote against this. And but work together to make sure that we get do the best that we can. And as I said earlier, keep the pedal to the metal and keep doing what we can do to increase and do the best that we can. But we need to look strategically. The higher ed environment has changed dramatically, and we have to do it too. And if we can be ahead of that curve, the better off we'll be. And but right now, I don't think we're ahead of the curve.
Any other comments or discussion before we move to a vote?
I just had a private clarification. What is the thought process or the mindset of the advantage of having 10 governor appointees? Just because the other higher education centers do it? I don't.
Yeah, and I'll let Olivia expound on this a little bit.
Yeah. NCI
the
has
idea,
the,
yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
Sorry. NCI has the most gubernatorial appointments with the least amount of specification out of all the higher ed centers. Most of the other higher ed centers have 7 or less gubernatorial appointees with specifications such as public school superintendents, leaders from the healthcare industry, from tourism and technology. NCI's just 10 individuals any governor can appoint. 3 of them have to be from business and industry, which that could be any business in any industry. And the only other specificity is that 13 out of the 15 board members need to live in Virginia. So NCI's code language is pretty wide open in terms of the gubernatorial appointments versus the other 4 higher education centers have it carved out on who they're trying to target on the local level to get that ground floor understanding of what the community needs, paired with the statewide representation of SHEV, university presidents, VCCS, et cetera.
Chairman
Yeah.
Jones?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Lockhart. I think one point of this too is the apples to apples comparison. So a lot of times, when you look at the other higher ed centers, we've used the term like the community wants this or the business people in the community want that. They have specified people on their boards that are at the table. 1. 2, also when people in the community have asked, past executive directors and this current executive directors to form partnerships with universities, when I looked at it across the board and I looked at the charters and I looked at the board composition, those people are sitting at the table. So it's a lot easier conversation for the executive director to say, hey, let's you and I sit down and have a program discussion about something we could do here, instead of our current executive director having to schedule time on people's calendars and kind of, walk the, ground roots effort of knocking on doors to try to get people to the table. I think, Mr. Lane, I think what this looks like is trying to level the playing field. If we're going to be assessed, I just want to be assessed with an apples to apples comparison to other higher ed centers, so that if we are audited or all called out on something, it's because we're not meeting the level of what the expectation is across the board. So when I look at this statement, that's what I see. I see a leveling of the playing field a little bit, because it seems like some higher ed centers have a little bit of a leg up, and you can see that in stats, both in funding and both in less scrutiny and the programming that they're able to do because their partners are at the table. So we won't have to guess who the community is. We know who the community is because they're a part of the discussion.
But to that point, Eric, but if we're not even recognized as a higher education center, how is it going to be apples to apples?
We are recognized as a higher education center. We just don't have board construction that levels what the other higher ed centers have.
Joe, you are next in line.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Vice Chair. Just anecdotally speaking, I'll share with the team in response to Mr. Lane's inquiry there. Have a great relationship with the other higher ed centers and their executive directors. We meet monthly as a cohort, and then they have been phenomenal as far as when I arrived, being the new kid on the block, so to speak. Mr. Telly Tucker, David Matlock, one organization in Danville, one out in Abington. very different types of operations, but they've been very, very helpful. Dr. K up in Roanoke, Dr. Charlotte over in South Boston, every one of them have been just phenomenal. When I first arrived, met with all of them, and then along the way over the past 3 years, every time you hit a major hurdle, every time you're facing a budget issue, they've kind of been my go-to. Give them a call, ask them for some guidance, and I don't want to overly share or speak on their behalf, but I can tell you one thing that has been central in some of those conversations has been you need your partners on your board. Specifically, I won't disclose too many details, but in my conversations with another higher ed center director, a very successful one, the question was asked of me: when you're ready to propose a new bachelor's degree, how do you start? I started explaining it, and he stopped me. He says, "Your first step should just be stand in front of your board and say, who wants to offer a bachelor's degree here? Because you should have those partners sitting at your board table already." So it just logically makes sense, as the others have said. It puts us on the same level footing. It gives us an opportunity to operate in the same manner as them, with the same level of clout and the same level of resources, all at the same table.
Dr. Crabtree?
Yeah, I think that board composition, I think, would be very helpful in this situation. And one of the things, and I don't mean to offend any of our wonderful folks in the legislature, but I have never seen an institution that had 5 out of 15 members of the legislature on the board, and that creates kind of an interesting situation overall. And maybe they need they need to rethink that a little bit too, because that kind of politicizes it at times when you have 3 and 2, and that'll be 2 and 3, or however it all works out. It does create an issue that I think that most college boards don't have that. I can tell you that when I was rector at Longwood, we didn't have, I don't even know if we had a single one on. And so that's something to, when we go through and evaluate, just the total board structure, and those partners at the table is so important.
Not to speak for any of the legislators on here, but we do have more legislators than the other 4 higher education centers on the board. However, getting in the business of changing the proportionality of the House and Senate, anybody that's been in the General Assembly for a session or more knows that that is going to be a major hill to climb. Senator Srinivasan, you're welcome to chime in any anecdotes that you might have, but.
Just going to say, oops, I was just going to say, if it's a good point, I've been trying to understand. I'm obviously a new board member, and see, what we can do to get NCI to a better optimal board structure. So just more to come.
Thank you.
All right. Are we ready to, I guess I'll need to make the motion, which would be to adopt the changes that were requested during this meeting. And I had an additional one on that last section, number 3, instead of saying with the new Attorney General, just to say to work with the Office of the Attorney General, to make it just very simple there. So I will, the motion would be to adopt this report to present to the chair. I don't think, Olivia, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we're just submitting it to the chair, correct? Or to the full committee?
To like the full board?
Yeah.
So,
sorry, the full board. Sorry.
Yeah, following this meeting, I can send an email to Eric with the outcome of today's meeting. And then if he wants to add that to next week's agenda for full board consideration, I think that would be the appropriate next step.
Okay. Then the motion would be to adopt the changes on the report and forward to the chair of the board to do with what he chooses for his review. So do I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All, yes, all for the benefit, hopefully, of Martin and Henry County and surrounding area, but yes, and also side note, Olivia and Joe, thank you for your work and your research, what you've done and put into it, but yes, for the betterment of the community. Thank you.
Nays?
Nay.
All right, the report will be submitted to the chair. So again, thank you all for your time today. And I also thank staff for all of their work on this and everyone's thought and consideration. We really appreciate it. There's we've got a lot of steps to take to change this organization for the better, to impact the overall community. And I really do think that this is a major step forward. So thank you all.
I think
Thank
Cinder's
you,
pretty
and
well
I
said.
look forward to seeing you all next week at the GAP, at the General Assembly.
Thursday.
Yes.
Yep.
Thursday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thursday it is.
Madam
Oh,
Vice-
I'd like to, may I add something? Jay Dickens, our board member's mother, passed away yesterday.
Oh,
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 no.
It
Okay.
was
We'll send our
expected, and so
condolences.
I got the word, and I thought if you have a personal relationship with him,
oh,
it's
gracious.
never easy, even though it's expected.
okay.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Y'all
that.
be safe.
you.
Have a good weekend.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.